Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the FTX Arena in Miami, Florida, while Rampage was from the Addition Financial Arena in Orlando. And Rampage was live tonight, which was cool. And Smackdown tonight, I gotta say, it was a okay show. It wasn't as bad as how it's been all year. All year, SmackDown has been fucking awful. Tonight, I thought it was an okay show. But tonight, we had Ricochet versus Sami Zayn. The Intercontinental Championship was on the line. We had the SmackDown Tag Team Championship on the line where the Usos defend the titles against the Viking Raiders. This was the match that was supposed to be at Elimination Chamber, but they didn't have it, of course, because they flew the Usos and the Viking Raiders 18 hours from the US to Saudi Arabia, only to not have the match and just have a brawl. So it was a waste of them to go all the way to Saudi Arabia just for that. But we had the match tonight on SmackDown. And in the main event, it was Ronda Rousey versus Sonya Deville. Overall, SmackDown was an okay show tonight. Wasn't as bad as it always has been every week. But let's jump right into the SmackDown review. SmackDown opened up tonight with Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was backstage. He ended up introducing himself. And Paul Heyman ended up saying that tonight, SmackDown will be blessed with the Tribal Chief, Roman Reigns' presence, and an opportunity to acknowledge him. So then it cut to Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey ended up hyping up her SmackDown in-ring debut. She ended up saying that her match with Sonya Deville will be one to remember. Yeah, wait until I get to explain that match. So she ended up saying that she will show Sonya Deville that SmackDown isn't just the name of the show. And then it ended up cutting to Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville ended up saying that the only thing memorable about Ronda's first match on SmackDown will be her first loss on SmackDown, because nothing can compete with the power of authority. So then it went to the Viking Raiders. The Viking Raiders ended up saying that SmackDown Tag Team Champions, the Usos, have been playing hide and seek, but Vikings don't play games. They raid, and they will rip the titles from whatever is left of the Usos. So then we went to the Usos. The Usos end up dismissing what the Viking Raiders just said, and they end up saying that they're going to knock them for their size, and that they are the ones. So then we went to Ricochet. Ricochet ended up taking shots at Sami Zayn, but Ricochet ended up giving Sami Zayn some props for his work. And he ended up saying that he won't be champion after tonight. That Sami Zayn won't be champion after tonight. So then we went to Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn ended up mentioning Johnny Knoxville and Shinsuke Nakamura. He ended up saying that after tonight, everyone will be calling him the greatest Intercontinental Champion. And so that was basically that. That was what SmackDown opened with. Promos from all these guys here. Paul Heyman and Ronda Rousey, Sonya Deville, the Viking Raiders, the Usos, Ricochet, Sami Zayn. So just opened up with that. And so Sami Zayn ended up walking out. And we had the first match of the night. We went right to the action. Ricochet versus Sami Zayn, Intercontinental Championship on the line. So Sami Zayn ended up making his way out, and we saw footage from last week where Sami Zayn ended up taking out Johnny Knoxville. So we saw that, and then Ricochet ended up making his way out. And this was a good match. Really enjoyed this match. And the wrestling here from Ricochet and Sami Zayn was good. The bell ended up ringing, and Ricochet ended up rushing to Sami Zayn. Ricochet ended up taking Sami Zayn down, going for cover, and Sami Zayn kicked out too. Ricochet continued to mount some offense on Sami Zayn. Ricochet then delivered a drop kick, and Ricochet springboarded in from the apron. He ended up rolling through. Sami Zayn delivered a clothesline to Ricochet, and he went for the cover, and Ricochet ended up kicking out too. Sami Zayn then ended up grounding Ricochet, started working him over with some right hands, and it was back and forth between the both of them. Sami then ended up blocking a kick from Ricochet on the apron. Sami then ended up nailing a German suplex to Ricochet on the apron, and when he hit that German suplex, Ricochet ended up landing hard on the edge of the apron. The back of his neck, I think, ended up hitting the edge of the apron, which caused him to fall to the floor. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sami Zayn was talking trash from the second rope while Ricochet was down. Ricochet jumped in. He ended up rocking Sami Zayn with a kick. He ended up going for the cover, and Sami Zayn ended up kicking out too. Ricochet ended up springboarding in from the apron, and Sami Zayn ended up catching him in midair. Sami Zayn ended up turning it into a sit-down powerbomb, and he went for the cover. Ricochet kicked out too. So Ricochet ended up blocking a exploder suplex from Sami Zayn. He ended up rolling Sami Zayn up for a 2 count. Ricochet ended up knocking Sami's legs out, ended up hitting a standing moonsault, and he went for the cover. Sami Zayn ended up kicking out too. Ricochet ended up running the ropes. He flipped over the top. He took down Sami Zayn on the floor. Ricochet ended up bringing Sami Zayn back to the ring. He went up to the top. Sami Zayn ended up cutting Ricochet off, and Sami Zayn ended up knocking Ricochet back out to the floor. And then we had Johnny Knoxville end up coming out. Johnny Knoxville was showing off his shirt that said Sami Zayn Intercontinental Chump on it. So Sami Zayn got into the ring. He was yelling at Johnny Knoxville. Knoxville ended up popping back off the apron. So Ricochet came back to the ring. He ended up spiking Sami Zayn with a modified Hurricanrana, and Ricochet ended up going for the cover. And there you go. For the first time, Ricochet is holding the Intercontinental Championship. So Ricochet is your new Intercontinental Champion. First time that he won the title, which was awesome. But there was a talk on Pat McAfee's show where Vince McMahon was the guest on Pat McAfee's show. It happened yesterday, Thursday, and he kept saying Ricochet is due for a big push. And I think from what we saw here tonight, with Ricochet winning the Intercontinental Championship, this is the start of his push. But I won't trust that because, Vince says at points, we're going to give this superstar a big push. And then Vince ends up getting tired of pushing a certain superstar. Like take, for instance, Ricochet. He kept saying that, he's going to push Ricochet. And then watch, he's going to get tired of pushing Ricochet. And Ricochet will possibly lose the Intercontinental Championship. I give it 3 weeks to a month. 3 weeks to a month, maybe. That's when WWE is going to take the title off of Ricochet. Watch. I may be wrong in that. That's my prediction. But that's how Vince is. He says he's going to push a certain superstar, and then he ends up getting tired of them. It's like, oh, I got this fresh new toy. I'm going to play with it. And then in about weeks or a month, I'm going to get tired of playing this certain toy. So goes back right on the shelf. That's what Vince does with certain superstars. He says that, oh, we're going to give them a big push, and then he gets tired of them. He gets tired of pushing certain superstars. Oh, you're going right back on the shelf. So I don't trust this push for Ricochet. I really don't. Watch Vince gets tired of pushing Ricochet. So, with Ricochet winning the Intercontinental Championship, what did it mean? It meant nothing. But at least the good thing is that we're not getting Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville for the Intercontinental Championship at WrestleMania. It's just going to be a one-on-one match now with just Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville. Still, the match will be terrible, even though it won't be for the Intercontinental Championship now that Ricochet won it. But that match is still possibly going to be fucking terrible at WrestleMania between Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville. But overall, this was a good match between Sami Zayn and Ricochet. Enjoyed the match. So then we saw the highlights of Vince McMahon when he was on the Pat McAfee show yesterday, where Pat McAfee was talking about competing at WrestleMania. And he was saying that he may not be ready physically, but he's ready to go. So it's just that little clip of, Vince McMahon highlights on the Pat McAfee show. So then, as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Sami Zayn was backstage. He was throwing a fit because, he lost the Intercontinental Championship. He ends up spotting the cameraman. He starts ranting into the camera, starts ranting about Johnny Knoxville. So he ends up saying, Knoxville, why don't you come to Dallas and challenge me to a match at WrestleMania? So there you go. It's gonna be happening. Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville at WrestleMania. Who cares? Who fucking cares? This match is gonna be fucking terrible. And then we had Austin Theory end up coming out. So a lot of you probably saying, why is Austin Theory here? He's a Raw superstar. And they say, the brand, they want to end the brand split. Which I would like to see WWE do it, but knowing them, they won't. So Austin Theory ended up coming out. He ended up saying that he competes on Raw, and he is the protege of Vince McMahon. Austin Theory ended up saying that he goes where Vince goes. So Austin Theory ended up addressing Pat McAfee. And he ended up saying that Vince was on the show because he set him up. So Theory ended up saying that Pat McAfee probably thinks Vince likes him. But he does everything for a reason. And like everyone else. Theory ended up saying that he thinks Pat McAfee is a loudmouth who needs to shut up. So Austin Theory ended up asking Pat McAfee what he's going to do when his mouth is wired shut. So Theory was at ringside, and Pat McAfee ended up standing up from the commentary table. Austin Theory ended up saying that he is Pat McAfee's opponent for WrestleMania. And he's going to beat Pat McAfee to a pulp. So Austin Theory then ended up smacking Pat McAfee, ended up knocking the headset off of McAfee, and he ended up walking off. Pat McAfee then stood on top of the commentary table. He was telling Austin Theory to come back. he called Austin Theory a little bitch. So Austin Theory ended up backing away to the stage. He was taunting Pat McAfee, and of course he was taking selfies. So Pat McAfee ended up looking on from the commentary table as Michael Cole was trying to calm him down. So Pat McAfee then put his headset back on. He was asking who Austin Theory is. So McAfee was furious. He ended up blaming Michael Cole for what just happened. And Michael Cole ended up saying that he has no idea what was going to happen. And he ended up asking if what Austin Theory did hurt. And Pat McAfee ended up telling Michael Cole it did not. So there you go. Set in stone. Austin Theory versus Pat McAfee at WrestleMania. Thank God we are not seeing Vince McMahon versus Pat McAfee, which that was originally rumored to be at WrestleMania. Can you imagine a 76-year-old Vince McMahon in the ring? Thank God we are not getting that. That would have been fucking terrible. With Vince and Pat McAfee in the ring at WrestleMania. A 76-year-old Vince McMahon. But this was a decent segment here. Set up Austin Theory and Pat McAfee's feud going into WrestleMania. And then we had Naomi versus Carmella. And this was just very meh, in my opinion. We had Naomi end up coming out along with Sasha Banks. So then, as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Michael Cole ended up confirming Pat McAfee versus Austin Theory at WrestleMania. So out came Carmella and Queen Zelina Vega. So we went to a pre-recorded promo that was done backstage with Carmella and Vega. And of course, Vega with the awful, terrible accent that she does. Well, she needs to drop that accent. It is fucking terrible. Why does she need to do an accent for? Oh, do you know what is good next month? Oh, and then Carmella's like, oh, my wedding is next month. And then Vega ended up dropping the accent and talked like how she always does. So that was that. But they really need to drop Vega doing that awful accent. She doesn't need it. So the match ended up starting. Carmella immediately ended up going out of the ring to put her ugly, awful mask on. Looks horrendous every time it's on her face. Still, ever since she had her match with Liv Morgan, and Liv Morgan ended up tossing Carmella into the turnbuckle, that's when she started wearing the mask. I'm like, alright, it's time to drop wearing the mask. Looks horrendous on her face. She doesn't need to wear a mask. So Carmella ended up coming back to the ring. Naomi ended up kicking her in the head on the apron. Naomi ended up bringing Carmella into the ring. She ended up going up to the top. Carmella ended up cutting her off because Vega ended up distracting Naomi. Carmella ended up sending Naomi to the mat, started working her over. Naomi ended up delivering a big kick to the face to Carmella. She ended up going for the cover, and Carmella ended up kicking out at 2. So we had Zelina Vega end up getting on the apron. Sasha ended up heading over, ended up pulling Vega off the apron. She ended up hitting the Meteora into the ring steps onto Vega. Naomi ended up dropping Carmella, ended up hitting the split-legged moonsault, and she ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Naomi ended up winning the match. Who cares? Who cared about this match? Did you? I know I didn't. Match was meh. And then we had Corbin backstage. Corbin was playing poker with Moss and their friends that were there. God. Every time, I said this before and I'll say it again. Corbin and Moss, every time they're on TV, they make this show even worse. So, Corbin was giving McIntyre some props, and he was touting some of his success at WrestleMania, including his win over Kurt Angle, which, that was such a good match there. Match was fucking terrible. That was Kurt Angle's retirement match. So you end up saying that McIntyre will be just another feather in his fedora. So Corbin ended up talking about putting McIntyre in a retirement home. So Corbin ended up getting Moss to crack a terrible joke on McIntyre. And the TV that was in the room turned on and showed McIntyre make his way down to the ring. And then we had Drew McIntyre versus Jinder Mahal. We saw this match at SummerSlam last year. Nothing special happened in this match. If you saw that match at SummerSlam last year, same result here. Except we had Shanky at ringside. When in their match at SummerSlam last year, Veer and Shanky were banned. So man, I feel bad for Drew McIntyre. He goes from being WWE Champion to fighting Jinder Mahal last year at SummerSlam, and then at WrestleMania this year, going on to face Happy Corbin. Man, that match, take your bathroom breaks during that match at WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre versus Happy Corbin, take your fucking bathroom breaks. Because that match is a bathroom break. This match, it was whatever. So Drew McIntyre ended up coming out with his sword. And as SmackDown came back from the commercial, McIntyre was looking on as Jinder Mahal ended up making his way out with Shanky. Of course, we have to go backstage once again with Corbin and his friends watching backstage. They were watching the match. They paused their poker game. So McIntyre and Jinder Mahal ended up locking up. McIntyre ended up catching a kick from Jinder, but Jinder ended up rocking McIntyre, ended up beating him down. McIntyre ended up running over Jinder with his shoulder. He was delivering some chops. Jinder ended up ducking a chop from McIntyre. He leveled McIntyre with a kick. Ended up going for the cover. McIntyre kicked out too. We had McIntyre end up kipping up because McIntyre ended up dropping Jinder with a neck breaker. Shanky ended up getting on the apron, and McIntyre ended up ducking him, sending Shanky face first into the ring post. Jinder tried to go for the Colossus off of the distraction, but McIntyre ended up leveling him with the Glasgow Kiss headbutt. And McIntyre ended up calling for the Claymore, which he ended up hitting the Claymore on Jinder. And so he went for the cover. And there you go. Drew McIntyre ended up winning the match. Obviously, we all knew he was winning. Post-match, Kayla Braxton ended up interviewing McIntyre. And she ended up asking if it bothers him that Corbin and his friends were having a laugh at his expense backstage. McIntyre ended up going on about how no one can stand Corbin, and he has no locker room respect. McIntyre ended up saying that he will be doing the world a favor when he beats Corbin at WrestleMania. So McIntyre ended up saying that Corbin may be undefeated as, Happy Corbin. But all good things must come to an end, and he will take Corbin out at WrestleMania. And then we went backstage. Moss ended up cracking another horrible joke about McIntyre as Corbin looked worried. So that was that. But this match, like I said, it will be everyone's bathroom break at WrestleMania. Drew McIntyre versus Corbin, it's not a WrestleMania-worthy match. Take your bathroom breaks when that match happens. So then we went back to the ring, and out came Rick Boogs. Rick Boogs came out with his guitar. He ended up introducing Nakamura, of course. So both Boogs and Nakamura headed to the ring, and the Usos ended up attacking them from behind. So the Usos end up just being down on Boogs and Nakamura. Officials end up coming over to check on Boogs and Nakamura. As the Usos end up stepping back, they raised their fingers in the air. And then Roman Reigns ended up coming out. Roman Reigns and Paul Heyman came out. Michael Cole ended up saying that it all makes sense now. That the Usos took out Nakamura and Boogs because the Tribal Chief wanted to be acknowledged and felt like it was his time to come to the ring on his show. Of course, Roman Reigns ended up saying, this is my show. This is my, commentary table. This is my audience. This is my WrestleMania sign. So we had the Bloodline end up standing tall at the entranceway. They raised their fingers in the air. So the Bloodline then came into the ring, and Paul Heyman ended up placing the mic in Reigns' hand. So Reigns ended up getting on the mic. He called on Miami to acknowledge him. Reigns ended up saying that tomorrow night, he and Brock Lesnar will defend their titles at Madison Square Garden. It's the Road to WrestleMania house show happening at MSG tomorrow. Reigns ended up saying that we already know what he's going to do. He will smash whoever steps up and send them to the back of the line, like he's been doing. Reigns ended up saying that Lesnar's defense is where it's getting interesting. He ended up saying not all of us want to see Lesnar with the title, or even make it to WrestleMania. He wants Brock to make it to WrestleMania as champion and hand deliver the WWE Championship to the Tribal Chief. So Reigns ended up getting Paul Heyman to say his, not a prediction, but a spoiler, line. So Reigns ended up asking if they should give Miami a spoiler. Reigns ended up saying that he's like Babe Ruth. He calls his shot and doesn't miss. So Reigns ended up saying that he's going to call his shot again this year. He ended up saying that the biggest match of all time, he's going to smash Lesnar, pin him, and stand over him with both titles in the air as about $5 million worth of fireworks go off. Well, them calling this the biggest match of all time, it's not the biggest match of all time. WWE, they said that this was a winner-takes-all unification match, yet it's not unification. We're not going to get one belt. We're going to get the same two belts. We're still going to get the WWE Championship and the Universal Championship. Roman Reigns is just going to float around on both Raw and SmackDown with the two titles. Unification means unifying both titles and only making one title. One. If I was doing this, I would retire the Universal Championship. So yeah, it's not a full unification. We're still getting the WWE Championship and the Universal Championship. So Roman's going to be floating around on both Monday Night Raw and SmackDown. You can find some competitors on Monday Night Raw to face, but on SmackDown, who else is there for Roman to face? He's gone through everybody. There's nobody on SmackDown for Roman to compete with. Maybe Drew McIntyre? But if Roman and Drew McIntyre have this feud and have a match, who's after Drew McIntyre? Who's going to be after Drew McIntyre for Roman to face? Nobody. So It's not even unification. It's Roman just holding up both titles, and we're not even going to get one belt. It's going to be both belts that Roman's going to have around him. Yeah. WWE needs to know the word unification. Needs to know the description on what unification means. So, Roman ends up saying that Lesnar will have no choice but to acknowledge him. Reigns ends up started yelling about being acknowledged. And Michael Cole ended up saying that Brock Lesnar is definitely in Roman's head. Reigns ended up saying that at WrestleMania, Brock Lesnar will acknowledge him. So, pretty much, that was that. Overall, this was a decent segment with Roman. This match is not going to be the biggest match of all time come WrestleMania. It's not. I mean, we all know predictable. Roman is walking out of WrestleMania with both titles. And then we had the Viking Raiders versus the Usos. Smackdown Tag Team titles on the line. This match was supposed to take place at Elimination Chamber, but it didn't. But this was a decent match here. We had the match start off with Eric end up taking Jimmy down, end up sending him out of the ring. Jay ran in. Eric ended up tossing him to the floor. Ivar charged at ringside, and he barreled through the Usos. Ivar ended up going up to the top. He ended up hitting a flying splash to Jimmy, and he ended up going for the cover. Jimmy ended up kicking out. Jay ended up saving Jimmy from a Viking experience. Ivar then ended up getting sent into the ring post. Jay tagged in, and Jimmy and Jay ended up dropping Eric with a double team. They started working on Ivar at ringside. Jay ended up taking back in. He was beating Eric around and against the barricade. So Eric ended up fighting back. Jay ended up sending him face first into the ring post. Jimmy ended up taking back in, and the Usos ended up tossing Eric over the barricade into the timekeeper's area. And at the end of the match, Jay ended up distracting the referee, which allowed Jimmy to deliver a super kick to Eric. Jay ended up rolling him for a close 2 count. So Jimmy ended up taking in. He ended up delivering a super kick to Eric. And then they delivered the 1D, just like the 3D, like the Dudley Boys. So they delivered the 1D to Eric. And ended up going for the cover. And there you go. The Usos ended up win the match, retaining the Smackdown Tag Team titles. Overall, this was a decent match. And then we saw footage of Big E and Kofi Kingston riding the ATV backstage. The ATV has been getting over with Big E and Kofi Kingston just riding it. And Big E and Kofi Kingston, they ended up coming out. They ended up riding the ATV down. Big E was driving the ATV, and Kofi Kingston was slapping hands with the fans. So it was supposed to be Sheamus versus Big E, but the match didn't happen. So out came Sheamus and Ridge Holland. They ended up stopping. They took a look at the ATV, and Sheamus was arguing with Big E, and Kofi ended up standing on the ATV. He was honking the horn to the tune of course, New Day chant. Ridge Holland ended up coming from behind and was smacking Kofi in the back with a chair, which knocked Kofi off the ATV. Big E ended up coming over to the ropes to see what was going on, and Sheamus ended up taking Big E out from behind with a chop block to Big E's knee. Ridge Holland started being on the ATV with the chair, while Sheamus was working Big E over in the ring. Sheamus then ended up hopping on the ATV, and he rioted away with Ridge Holland on the back. And then Smackdown went to commercial. And then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, it showed what happened during the break where Sheamus and Ridge Holland were destroying the ATV in the parking lot. They were just busting it up. So the ATV got busted. So, everybody liked that. Biggie and Kofi Kingston were driving on the ATV. Kofi ended up getting that ATV for Biggie's birthday. And the ATV got over with them, and Vince and Bruce put that away really fast. When things are getting over, Vince and Bruce have to just put that away and just bring it down, not, have stuff get over. It's a common thing in WWE. So then we had Kayla Braxton. Kayla Braxton was backstage with Johnny Knoxville. Kayla Braxton ended up asking Knoxville for his response to Sami Zayn's challenge at WrestleMania. Knoxville ended up saying that Sami Zayn is a sad, strange little man, and he only came here tonight to remind him he's the Intercontinental Chump, which is the message, which was, of course, said on Knoxville's shirt. Knoxville ended up talking about how he's put his body through more than Sami Zayn has. He ended up saying that he's not scared to get into the ring with a low-down cheat like Sami Zayn. Knoxville ended up saying that he will see Sami Zayn at WrestleMania. So Johnny Knoxville then ended up starting a Sammy Sucks chant, and some of the fans were chanting Sammy Sucks, and that was that. Like I said before, this match is going to be fucking terrible come WrestleMania between Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville. And then we saw Corbin backstage. He was playing darts with Moss. So we had Drew McIntyre's sword suddenly launching into the dartboard. Corbin ended up retreating, and McIntyre ended up smiling at the camera. And that was that. Who cares? And then we had Sonya Deville versus Ronda Rousey. This was your main event for SmackDown tonight. This match was boring. Absolutely boring. And it was predictable. We all knew that Ronda Rousey was going to win this match. Sonya Deville ended up coming out first. So then, as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Ronda Rousey ended up coming out. Of course, this was Ronda's SmackDown in-ring debut. Her first match ever on SmackDown. So Ronda Rousey and Sonya Deville end up facing off in the middle of the ring. And then Charlotte Flair end up coming out. So Charlotte was on commentary during the match. Might as well put the TV on mute. So Ronda Rousey ended up slapping Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville ended up charging at Ronda, but Ronda ended up kicking Deville. Ronda ended up dodging a shot. She ended up taking Deville down. She delivered another takedown to Sonya Deville. Ronda was struggling for the armbar. Charlotte ended up jumping on the apron for a distraction. Ronda ended up coming over to Charlotte at the ropes, but Sonya Deville ended up taking her down with a chop block to Ronda Rousey's injured knee because Michael Cole on commentary when Ronda Rousey made her way out, he ended up saying that she had a brace on her knee, which she did because of her knee being injured. So Sonya Deville started loaded with some kicks in the corner. And Ronda Rousey ended up trying to get out of the corner. Sonya Deville slammed her back down, delivered a running knee to Ronda's face. Deville went for the cover. Ronda ended up kicking out too. So Deville ended up grounding Ronda in a chin lock. So Sonya Deville ended up keeping Ronda Rousey grounded while she was talking trash to her. So Ronda later on mounted some offense. She ended up delivering a running knee to send Sonya Deville into the corner. Ronda ended up blocking a shot and slammed Sonya Deville 3 times by her arm. So Ronda then ended up dropping down with the arm bar on Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville ended up quickly tapping out. So there you go. Ronda Rousey ended up winning the match. Post-match, Charlotte ended up telling Michael Cole and Pat McAfee that she is not impressed by the armbar. She ended up calling it one of Ronda Rousey's one-trick pony. Ronda Rousey wanted Charlotte to come into the ring. Charlotte ended up noticing that. She took her headset off. Charlotte ended up taking her time coming into the ring. Ended up telling Ronda to back away. Ronda ended up charging, ended up taking Charlotte down. And she then went into the ankle lock. She locked in the ankle lock on Charlotte. Charlotte quickly started tapping out as Ronda ended up tightening the hold of the ankle lock. Charlotte was screaming out in pain. Charlotte was limping around at ringside as Ronda was taunting her. And pretty much that was basically how SmackDown went off the air. Overall, Sonya Deville versus Ronda Rousey, very boring. Easy win for Ronda here. And I don't care about this match at WrestleMania between Ronda and Charlotte for the SmackDown Women's Championship. Ronda Rousey is just here just to receive a paycheck. You could tell she doesn't care to be there. Overall, SmackDown was a okay show tonight. Wasn't bad as how it's been since the beginning of the year. Moving on to AEW Rampage, which Rampage was an awesome show tonight. Revolution is this Sunday, and sadly I'm not going to review Revolution because I'll be working when the show is on. But Rampage was from the Edition Financial Arena in Orlando. It was live tonight, which was awesome. Love when Rampage is live. The crowd there live is much better than when Rampage is taped every week, because they end up taping Rampage after Dynamite goes off the air. So, but always love when Rampage is live. It's just a much different feel than when it's taped every single week. So tonight on Rampage, we had a triple threat match for the TNT Championship. Sammy Guevara defending the TNT Championship against Darby Allin and Andrade El Idolo. Keith Lee was in action. He ended up taking on JD Drake. We had Serena Deeb versus Leila Gray. Of course, a 5-minute challenge. Typical Serena Deeb squash match. And the main event, it was Christian Cage versus Ethan Page, the last participant to be in the Face of the Revolution ladder match at Revolution this Sunday. But overall, Rampage was an awesome show. So Rampage opened up tonight with the triple threat match. Sammy Guevara versus Andrade El Idolo versus Darby Allin. TNT Championship on the line. This was a awesome match. Really enjoyed this match. This match should have been on the Revolution card. This match was that entertaining from beginning to end. So the match started off with Darby and Sami Zayn. They were surrounding Andrade. So Andrade ended up rolling out of the ring. So Andrade ended up coming back in as Darby and Sammy were surrounding him. Darby ended up hitting an arm drag to Andrade from the top rope. Sammy Guevara ended up following it up with a kick to Andrade's head. Darby ended up hitting his destroyer onto Andrade. Sammy ended up rolling him up. And Sami Zayn ended up taking control of the match, ended up chopping Darby Allin into the corner. Sammy positioned Darby on the top turnbuckle, and Darby end up fighting out of it. Sammy end up recovering and he nailing a knee strike to Darby's face. Sammy ended up delivering another knee strike to Darby's face. Andrade ended up coming back to the ring. And at this point in the match, this part was awesome. Where Andrade ended up setting up a powerbomb. And the powerbomb was delayed and it was turned into a vertical suplex executed by Andrade, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara, which was an awesome spot there. I have never seen that done ever, where a powerbomb was delayed into a vertical suplex off the top. That was awesome. That was an awesome spot there in the match. So Andrade attempted to make the cover, and Guevara ended up kicking out. Andrade ended up turning his attention to Darby. He ended up launching Darby into the ropes. So Andrade ended up removing his belt. He smashed Darby in the back with the belt. Andrade then ended up shifting to Guevara. Andrade ended up whipping Guevara with the belt. So we had Darby end up slapping Andrade, end up sending him into the corner. Andrade ended up catching Darby and dropped him with a Uranagi backbreaker, which looked cool. So Andrade ended up climbing up to the top. He attempted to go for the moonsault onto Darby, but Darby ended up moving. Andrade ended up hitting Guevara instead. Andrade ended up followed up with knees to Darby's face in the corner. So we had Andrade going for the cover, and Darby ended up kicking out. So we had Andrade end up climbing up to the top. Darby ended up pushing him. Andrade was stuck in the Tree of Woe. And Sammy Guevara ended up hitting the coast to coast like Shane McMahon. He hit the coast to coast to Andrade's face. So all three men were down. Sammy and Darby were working together to take out Andrade on the outside. Darby ended up standing on the apron. Guevara ended up quickly grabbing Darby Allin and attempted a roll-up, which Darby ended up kicking out. And they were making pinfall attempts, both Darby and Guevara. So at the end of the match, Darby ended up running up to the top, and he ended up hitting the coffin drop. And Sammy Guevara, out of nowhere, broke up the pin, and Guevara ended up delivering a senton off the top rope. And he ended up going for the cover on Andrade. And there you go. Sammy Guevara ended up winning the match, retaining the TNT Championship. Overall, this was an awesome match. This was a good match. Really enjoyable. This match should have been on the Revolution card because of how good it was with these three guys in the ring. The wrestling here was awesome. And that whole spot there with the powerbomb being delayed into a vertical suplex by Andrade, Darby Allin, and Sammy Guevara, that was awesome. That I had never seen that done before. So overall, awesome match that should have been on the Revolution card. And then as Rampage came back from the commercial, we had Pac, Penta, and Alex Abrahantes in the ring. So Malachi Black and Brody King and Buddy Matthews, the House of Black, end up on the apron, and they end up coming into the ring. And Alex Abrahantes end up saying, "Oh, we have a third guy. We have a monster." So Eric Redbeard, aka Eric Rowan, end up showing up. So Eric Redbeard end up joining up with the Death Triangle to take out the House of Black. And I think this is the second time that Eric Redbeard has appeared on AEW television. So Eric Redbeard ended up clearing out security guys, because there were these security guys that came into the ring to not let anything go between the Death Triangle and the House of Black. So Eric Redbeard ended up taking out these security guys, Malachi, the House of Black, Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews end up getting out of the ring. We had Penta end up snapping one of the security guys' arm. And so we're going to get this match on the buy-in of Revolution, where it's going to be Pac, Penta, and Eric Redbeard against Malachi Black, Brody King, and Buddy Matthews, the House of Black. So it's going to be a trios match, and that is going to be on the Revolution buy-in. So there's your match. And then we had Dan Lambert. Dan Lambert ended up cutting a promo, and Scorpio Sky is going to get a TNT Championship match against Sammy Guevara next week on Rampage. And Dan Lambert also stated that Paige Van Zant is going to sign her AEW contract at Revolution. So that's that. So we're going to be getting that match next week on Rampage. Scorpio Sky versus Sammy Guevara. TNT Championship on the line. So that should be a pretty decent match there next week on Rampage. And then we had Keith Lee versus JD Drake. Keith Lee ended up making his way out. And the match started off with JD Drake. He was trying to rake Keith Lee in the chest. And Keith Lee ended up overpowering JD Drake. Keith Lee delivered a shoulder tackle, which sent JD Drake flying across the ring. So all the offense that JD Drake was trying to get in on Keith Lee was fended off by Keith Lee. Keith Lee chopped JD Drake outside the ring, ended up delivering a headbutt, sending JD Drake crashing out to the floor. So Keith Lee ended up urging the crowd to quiet down so he could hit a slap to JD Drake's chest. So we had JD Drake end up hitting a running drop kick to Keith Lee's head later on in the match, and he followed it up with a cannonball. Drake then ended up climbing to the top, and he landed a moonsault onto Keith Lee, and he went for the cover. Keith Lee ended up kicking out at 1. So JD Drake ended up going back to the top rope. Keith Lee ended up catching him. Keith Lee ended up powering over JD Drake. So Keith Lee ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Keith Lee ended up winning the match. But overall, this was an okay match here. Obviously knew that Keith Lee was going to win the match. And then we had a promo from CM Punk. And this was taped backstage after the segment with MJF, where MJF ended up beating down CM Punk into a bloody mess because of the diamond ring. So CM Punk ended up vowing to beat MJF and leaving parts of MJF's body all over Orlando at Revolution. Punk ended up saying that he will become a monster to fight the monsters of the world. He ended up saying, because I'm CM Punk and I'm better than you. So that was what Punk had to say in that taped backstage promo. And then we had Serena Deeb's 5-minute challenge. Your typical Serena Deeb squash match every week, where she's just squashing her opponents. So with Serena Deeb versus Leila Grey. So Serena Deeb won the match. Post-match, Serena Deeb ended up attacking Leila Grey. Hikaru Shida ended up coming out. So Hikaru Shida ended up racing to the ring with a kendo stick in hand, and she was hitting Serena Deeb with some strikes from the kendo stick. Serena Deeb ended up escaping through the crowd, and that was that. The 5-minute challenge where the Serena Deeb's opponent has to withstand 5 minutes in the ring with her. A typical Serena Deeb, squash match. Just like Wardlow on Dynamite. So then we had Jade Cargill backstage. Tay Conti ended up attacking Jade Cargill, before the match at Revolution this Sunday for the TBS Championship. So you had, Smart Mark Sterling there and Anna Jay. So we all know that Jade Cargill is going to retain the TBS Championship this Sunday at Revolution. So Jade Cargill is going to be 29-0 after that match. And then Eddie Kingston ended up cutting a promo, hyping up his match with Jericho at Revolution. Eddie Kingston ended up cutting a good promo, as always. So we saw that. Main event. Christian Cage versus Ethan Page. Face of the Revolution qualifying match. The winner gets the final spot in the match at Revolution in the ladder match. The Face of the Revolution ladder match. This was a good match. Good main event. Ethan Page ended up attacking Christian early on in the match. Christian ended up hitting a flying uppercut off the middle rope, which looked cool. So Christian ended up going for the cover. Page ended up kicking out at 1. Christian ended up tossing Ethan Page out of the ring, followed up with a running drop kick to Page on the outside. So Page ended up locking Christian into a bear hug, and Christian ended up getting out of that with a back elbow. So Christian ended up slamming Page's face off the steps, ended up hitting a tornado DDT to the outside floor. So they went back to the ring. Christian ended up punching Page, ended up landing a springboard sunset flip. Christian ended up dropping Page with a inverted DDT as he went for the cover, and Page ended up kicking out at 2. Christian ended up climbing up to the top rope as Page ended up rolling out of the ring. Page ended up leaping through the ropes, nailed Christian with a cutter, which looked really cool. Christian then took control of the match shortly after, hitting a diving headbutt to Page. So Christian was attempting to hit the spear. He ended up getting a shoulder tackle from Page. Page ended up setting up for a powerbomb, and Christian ended up reversing that, and he ended up going for the spear to Page, and he went for the cover. Page ended up kicking out at 2. So Page ended up setting up for Ego's Edge. Christian ended up escaping, ended up hitting the kill switch, and he went for the cover. And there you go. Christian Cage ended up winning the match. Post-match, Red Dragon and the Young Bucks ended up coming out. Jungle Boy, who was also in the ring, Jungle Boy ended up taking down Red Dragon and the Bucks. And that was basically how Rampage went off the air. Overall, awesome show Rampage was. Good match between Christian Cage and Ethan Page. So, and then you're all set for Revolution this Sunday. So it should be a good show. The card is awesome. And it's much better than WrestleMania's card. And if you think about it, Revolution is your WrestleMania. But anyways, that's it for my review of Smackdown and AEW Rampage. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Definitely give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe. And next video will be my movie review of The Batman, which I saw today, and I'm going to review it. That will be the next video. So until that video, I'll see you all later.